What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Groomer. Today, I'm pretty excited. I'm really excited for our guest here. I've got somebody that has won a thing called the ABC's Pooch Perfect Show. You guys ever heard of that? Well, if you haven't, it's a pretty big deal. My guest today has been grooming for 10 years, is a member of Groom Team USA, and she has started a brand new mobile grooming business after successfully running a salon with 20 plus employees for 9 years. Super stoked for you guys to meet her. I'm super stoked to get to know a little bit more about her story. Everybody welcome Miss Macie Pisa. Did I say your last name right, Macie?
You did. Hi, how are you?
Perfect. I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very excited to be here.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for joining us. So, what I want to do here, Macie, is I want to give people an idea about who you are before we dive any deeper. So, maybe give yourself, I know my intro was top class, but give yourself a little intro. No one can intro themselves better than the person who's behind the scenes there.
I guess the biggest thing about me is I'm a competitive groomer. So that has kind of taken me everywhere I've wanted to go, other than just the dogs. Um, but I started competing probably about 8, 9 years ago, and it's one of those things where you're like, well, I'm just going to give this little thing a try, and then you get hooked, and then it sucks all of the money and life out of you for the next 10 years. But it has taken me some amazing places like ABC, or I went to Belgium last year, and I'm going to Japan this year. So it's it's kind of crazy.
Oh
And
my gosh.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, you've seen a thing or two, and you've got a thing or two in your radar to see, coming up this year as well. So I'd love to dive into a little bit about this. I mean, before we get to how you're even, traveling to Japan next year, how did you get into this whole grooming world in the first place?
So I grew up, my mother was actually a dog groomer, and I said I was never going to be a dog groomer. That sounded like a lot of hard work, and it was dirty, and I didn't want to do it.
That's how it
So
always starts, huh?
trying to avoid becoming our parents. Yes.
Yes.
Well, I moved out of my parents' house, and the easiest job for me to get was as a bather at a grooming salon. And I spent 2 years as a bather, and I finally realized that I wasn't going to do anything else, that I could just be a dog groomer, I guess. And then about a year into learning to groom, who I did not learn to groom from my mother, and she's probably horrified that that's not the case. I learned from a woman that I worked for. I ended up working for her for 4 years. I love her dearly. She was an amazing first step for me.
Okay.
And I, yeah, I dove head first right in,
Okay.
and did not become a interior decorator living in Seattle. I became a dog groomer living in Buffalo, New York.
Two different lives there. Two different lives there. That's awesome. Okay. So you obviously knew what grooming was. It wasn't like you were, numb to that whole world because your mom was a groomer. But something switched. It's usually that, hey, I'm broke, I need money, I know how to bathe, right? It's usually that's the first step. And it seems like you took that step, and then you're like, okay, I can do this. I know the world. I have an edge, and like this is something I can be good at. Talk to me about, those 4 years that you were learning and working with your mentor at the time. What was that first step afterwards? Because it seems like, I'm sure, kind of like we are right now, everyone's always learning a whole bunch of things. But at some point you start to think for yourself, right? And it seems like after that 4 years, you must have had a moment where you're like, okay, I'm going to go do this next. Tell us about that, what that step was, and what made you ready to go do that.
So the salon I worked at did a lot of work with the City of Buffalo Animal Shelter. And we actually had this doodle come in, and he was this big, beautiful white Samoyed doodle.
Okay.
And I looked at him and I was like, he's so pretty, he's so cool. I knew what competitive grooming was. And so I was like, I'm going to take this matted dog, I'm going to shave it down, and then in 6 months, I'm going to take it to Hershey, and I'm
I
going to
mean,
compete.
I mean, that's a rock star plan if I've ever heard one.
Why wouldn't you do that? Well, I didn't realize, but the city of Buffalo had actually sedated the dog before they brought him to me for his shave down. So he was so good. And then I just like bathed him and dried him and brushed him out for the next 6 months and trained him, and he lived with me. And then I didn't give him another haircut until we were on stage at Hershey, where he decided to try and maul me. He actually chewed the little knob on a grooming arm. He chewed it off.
No.
I was grooming him on stage, but we got second place, so I was kind of hooked. And then
You're like, if I can do this with this doodle, I know I can be good at this. Like, oh, honey, yeah, we got this.
exactly, and I actually adopted him out at the show
Oh my God.
to the owner of Wagon Tails Mobile Conversions, who I just bought my mobile van from.
Comes full circle.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So that was the first show experience, was with a sedated, sheltered doodle. I mean, I couldn't have teed anything up better there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were hooked with that first show. Were you still working at the salon when you went to that first show?
I was, and my boss actually took most of the team, and they all watched me, and it was super nice, and it was a lot of fun. And we had actually gone the year before to Hershey, and I had watched all of the creative groomers, and that was like what I actually wanted to do. It's not
Yeah.
what I do now, but
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to do. And so it was crazy taking that first step from being someone sitting in the seats watching these groomers on stage to actually being one of the groomers on stage. And it's scary taking that first step. But the good news is, when you're an entry level competitor, they stick you in the back. So you get to hide behind all of the really crazy, talented people that you want to watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little bit of a buffer.
So it makes it a little bit easier to take that step, because I mean, I'm sure there's tons of groomers out there that would like to compete and want to do that, but I mean, let's face it is scary. It's really scary to put yourself out there and to do that sort of stuff. But it sounds like what you're saying is just, hey, it's gonna be okay. Just do it. They'll put you in the back. No one's gonna look at you anyways. It'll be all good.
Yes. And I did what I do every day. I groomed a doodle, and it helps when you don't have to worry about, learning a breed standard before you jump on stage. It's there's no rule book when you do freestyle. It's just, I don't know, it looks cute.
No, I love that. I love that. Okay. So then take us through, you went from, again, grooming a, let's call it an unbroken in doodle on your first competition, to winning a grooming competition on national television. Obviously, there's lots of stops along the way, but kind of tell that story. So obviously, you won the first competition. Were you immediately hitting every single competition that came, and like what happened then?
There's quite a few years in between there. So I spent the next 2 years working really, really hard to get into open level, which is the highest level you can be at. And I won quite a lot, and I made a lot of friends, and I had a lot of mentors. And once you make it into open, you're like, okay, there's no way that I'm going to win anymore for at least like 2 years. My first show in open, I won. So that show was New England, which I'm actually going to New England grooming show this coming weekend. But that show, I won, I can't remember if it was third place or second place with my Bedlington Terrier. And that was the show that I decided I wanted to be on Groom Team USA. That was the show that I decided that, like, this is possible.
Yeah, I can do this. I can play with the big dogs.
Yeah. And so I got way overconfident, and and that was in 2018, like the end of 2018, and then 2019 I was on Groom Team USA.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Some people it just comes easy to.
well, you say that, but it was a lot of waking up at 5 a.m. and not going to bed until 2.
Right.
Um,
And that's the
to
work that
make
people don't see,
yeah,
right? Is that
which
kinda like you said in the beginning, it takes a lot of time and way too much money, but it wasn't like you came up, and you're like, "Oh, I'm good at this." It's like, "No, no, no, I actually put in a ton of work to be here." Okay,
and
cool, very cool. Okay, so you went Groom Team USA. Tell us about those competition days. How were you? Like, how'd you do when you were that first year in Groom Team USA?
so um, Groom Team USA has their top 10. Okay, and I really wanted to make it into at least the top 10. I made it. I was number 5 that first year, which is really cool. Um, but once you make it into Groom Team, you kind of have to maintain that, and you kind of have to prove that you were meant to be there, that it wasn't a fluke. Um, and the year I made it into Groom, so 2020 happened obviously right after. So I kind of took a break, like everybody did. And then the year after, so 2021, I kind of decided that I didn't know if I wanted to compete anymore because I liked being a homebody. I liked sitting at home
Yeah,
and not having to travel every 2 weeks. It was crazy.
right.
And then I sat on my couch and watched everyone else compete and got major FOMO and came back out hard the next.
And that's when I got back in the game. Okay, so at that point then, ABC's what is it called? Perfect Pooch, right? Perfect Pooch was Pooch Perfect was coming up, and did they just approach you out of the blue? Did someone refer you to try out? How did that whole thing happen?
So trying to remember when it was. I think it was February of 2020. I was at a grooming competition and they were auditioning there. So I just happened upon the film crew. Actually, that's not what happened. A friend of mine happened upon the film crew, and I was busy cleaning poop off of my shoe in the bathroom.
I
So
mean, just humble beginnings.
he was calling me, but I had left my phone sitting on a booth when I stepped on in dog poop, so she couldn't get a hold of me. Finally, she like comes, drags me out of the bathroom, puts me in front of this camera, and I my audition tape was me telling them about me getting poop on my shoe. So this really nice man from Australia told me I was hilarious, and 6 months later, 9 months later, I finally heard from ABC that they were finally working on getting the show up, and it was a very long audition process, all done online because we were stuck at home. And finally, I got the call a week before we were supposed to fly out that we were actually going to be on the show. So we get to Los Angeles. I almost said Las Vegas, Los Angeles. We get there and we are sequestered in our hotel rooms for an entire week because they wanted to quarantine us.
Oh
We
my
weren't allowed
gosh.
to leave the hotel room.
And did you bring your competition dog, or was this something that they okay, so you didn't bring your show dog, you left it at home. It was like, "Oh, I don't even know what dog I'm gonna groom."
Yeah, it was all the dogs all auditioned too. They were
No
all
way.
like,
That is
yeah,
amazing. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, so you fly out there, and I know we haven't talked much about business. We can switch gears after this, but you were presumably working when they gave you this 1 week heads up, were you not?
yeah, we were. My business partner and I had to basically hire a few managers because we were going to be gone for a month. And it was me and my business partner. So we had to figure out how to run a business from Los Angeles in
Oh
Buffalo.
my gosh, that's crazy.
It
That's
was
crazy. Let's
insane.
touch about that. That's a good bridge to build. But fit, close the loop here. So you obviously, we know the ending to the story. You got selected to be on the show. And what was that like when you found out that you were selected? What did they tell you? Take us back to that time.
um, so I knew we were going to be selected. Like I knew. Like I have this thing in my
Just
brain where
feel it.
if I if I don't let myself think that I'm not going to win, we've already won. It's totally going to happen. Okay.
Love that.
My business partner, however, did not bring enough clothes. So she was like, we're not going to win. We can fire all of these people we just hired because we're not going. I was like, we're going. So she didn't buy clothes. She didn't do any like major preparation. And so we got to the show, and the last week we were there, she didn't have enough clothes to wear to be on national television. So our producer ended up giving her some of her clothes. So then she
That
had some.
is so good.
It was very entertaining.
Oh my gosh. And, take us back for those that didn't watch the show. Was it kind of neck and neck the whole way? Were you kind of an underdog? Were you supposed to win? How did that all work? Obviously you won, for anyone that doesn't know.
So there was two challenges for each episode. There was an immunity challenge, and then there was the best in show. And we won, I think there was 10 episodes. We won 8 of the immunity challenges, and we only won 2 best in shows. So,
Okay.
but there was a few people on that show. So it was mostly creative grooming, which is not what I do. I'm
Right.
mostly breeding standard, like boring black dogs.
Right.
And there was a lot of groomers on the show who were creative groomers who were amazing and super talented. And I did not think we were actually going to win. Like, I had to tell myself we were going to
Yeah,
win, but
yeah.
we were going to win.
Right.
But I'm so grateful for everything that we got to do. And we got to meet Lisa Vanderpump and Rebel Wilson. And like, it was
Oh
the
my
craziest
gosh.
4 weeks of my life.
That's insane. That's insane. So now let's maybe switch gears a little bit more to the business. What did that like propel you or give you any sort of leverage when you came back? You were just put on this national stage and you won. Were you able to, I know you've built up a salon with, 20 plus employees and all that sort of stuff. Is that what kind of came out of that, or kind of, tell us what did anything come out of that?
So it was a little bit bittersweet in a way. Because it was creative grooming, ABC got a lot of backlash because of the color on the dogs.
Right.
So they kind of swept the whole thing under the rug as much as possible. So we didn't get a ton of like national media
Notoriety.
attention because
Yeah.
they were like, oh, we kind of messed up. And so we did get a lot of like hometown attention. It was super cool. We got a lot of new clients out of it for sure.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you think like you're going to be on national television and then like you're going to be on a red carpet somewhere.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
then it's like they just forget it happened.
but it was really good for the business. We were already a very large grooming salon, but we
And so
went
talk
from having
about that.
6 groomers to 8 groomers after the TV show. So it wasn't like a
Okay.
huge.
And you had 6 to 8 groomers. How many dogs were you guys seeing a day?
So our groomers work 10-hour shifts. And so they're doing like 8 dogs a day. And, we usually had about 4 to 5 groomers on a day. So that kind of tells you like 8 times 4, was that 64 dogs?
Yeah,
That's
a lot of dogs. No, 32 dogs.
22 dogs.
Thir-
I'm a
thir-
groomer, not
32.
a math.
No, you're okay. All right, so you guys are doing 32 dogs a day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really impressive. That's great, and I'm sure it wasn't, like the factory type of setting where you're just in, up, out, right? They were well taken care of, and quality was of the utmost importance. Were you guys tell me a little bit more about the actual salon? Was it more of a boutique experience where you guys were charging on a higher end? Was it, kind of let's call it more of a, everyday experience where you guys are, just kind of seeing dogs on, certain intervals and you're charging on the lower end? Tell us a little bit more about your salon.
So we were definitely the salon's still open. We are definitely the highest price salon in Buffalo for sure.
What does that mean? Is Buffalo, New York very
Uh,
ritzy, or is it?
no, not really. So a small dog is gonna be around $100, like
Okay.
depending on what you're doing. It might be
Okay.
120, it might be 90, but it's gonna be
Okay.
around there. And
Yeah,
then
that makes sense.
like a doodle, you're looking at closer to 200 to 25, something like that.
Got it,
Um,
got it.
so not like LA
Nothing
prices.
crazy. Yeah, 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 yeah. Right. No, so you guys were doing pretty well though at your salon. Um, Talk to me about, management. Obviously, I love this question because I feel like it's everyone's got a different perspective and everyone's got a different angle. You had to switch from, you were a groomer. You're a groomer at heart, but now you're running a very large salon. If you have, 9 employees, or 20 employees at some point, right? I mean, you have a lot of people, or maybe I'm mixing up those numbers, 9 employees, 20 employees, something like that. You have a lot of employees. Yeah. And so you have to switch your hat from groomer to business owner. Tell me a little bit about, how you viewed that. I know have had a business partner. So tell me about, what were some of the ways that you guys were able to wear both of those hats? Did you have certain management style? Did you have a certain like setup with your partner where I would do this, she would do that? Did you have software that kind of took out a lot of the elements? Like what did you guys do?
So we had two managers that dealt with most of the day-to-day stuff, which took a lot
Okay.
of pressure off of her shoulders just because I travel a lot, she was traveling a lot. We weren't really in the salon nearly as much as you would think you would have to be for a salon as large as it is.
Right.
Um, and I was grooming 3 days a week for the most part. And then I would spend 2 days a week just kind of managing training people and just kind of overseeing random things. I was mostly the handyman. I think was my biggest contribution 9 times out of 10. Like I got the phone call every time something was broken. And then my business partner was mostly dealing with a lot of the numbers, and she was always trying to make it bigger, make it better. Like that was her
Love
main
that.
thing.
Yeah, of course. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And tell me too about while you were there, obviously you said you were the handyman, you guys had management. Was it tricky? Was it hard to get? I mean, again, it is amazing, and I think it's like way underplayed right now how big you got your salon, being a groomer, right? Uh, did you have a lot of things that you guys went through in the beginning, like, okay, we need to teach our managers to do XYZ, or was it just kind of like by happenstance they started picking it up and everything started flowing through? I mean,
So I think a lot of it was just because of who we picked
got it,
that made because we had both of the managers that we ended up picking had been with the salon for about 4 years before they became managers.
got
So
it.
they knew the flow, they knew how to do every other job that was there. And they just needed to learn how to deal with the people portion of it, which is really the hardest part. Because
Oh,
I don't know
100%.
if you work in a salon every day, but groomers, they'd be tough to manage.
And I
I
mean,
would
that's
even tough to manage.
no, you're right. And I mean, they're even tougher to find. And so I'm curious, you grew this thing pretty big. How were you guys training them yourselves? Were you finding them from other salons? Were people finding you guys? How did you guys grow in terms of grooming staff?
So the salon was lucky because this sounds really douchey. It had me. So we had three groomers who moved from out of state because they
Wow.
wanted to work with me. And a lot of the groomers in Buffalo are too scared to come work for me, but want to work for me. Um, and most people are actually scared of me, but I'm actually really nice. And I'm like 5 foot nothing. So why you would be scared of me, I don't know. um, but no, we got really, really lucky. We never really had problems finding staff. It was always just kind of something that, we got really lucky. And everyone
Amazing.
that came wanted to learn. And we were never looking for me. We were looking for someone who wanted to be me that I could teach.
Right. And that's how it all starts. I mean, that's how you didn't grow up with a Macy, that you couldn't look at yourself. You were looking at the people in front of you. That's just kind of how this thing works. I think that's a really good way to go about it. Um, I'm curious, you moved. You're in a mobile van now. So, connect the dots. What happened there? Did you get tired of working in a salon? Did you just want something new? Tell us where you're at and why you did what you did.
So, my favorite part of my job is connecting with my clients and connecting with the dogs. And when you work in a big salon, and you have a lot of clients that want your attention, it's really easy to overbook yourself and overextend yourself. And running a salon with 20 plus people is exhausting. It is a lot of work. And I do a lot of traveling. I do a lot of stuff outside of the salon. So I wanted something that was a little bit slower pace and a little bit more personal to the client. So I now get to go to my client's house. I had coffee this morning with my client. We just like sat down and had coffee. And I groomed
Amazing.
her, Scotty, while she sat in my van, and we talked about the fact that she wants to go show her dogs. And so she asked me where she could get a puppy. Like things that I couldn't do in a salon
Yeah.
full of other groomers, because like I can't bring my nice lady that I want to chat with. I can't bring her into the salon. She'll go touch somebody's dog. So
Right, and sit there and drink coffee and talk about real life stuff. No, that's amazing. That client relationship you really don't get, especially as you build up a big salon. I mean, even in small salons in general. So how long have you been at mobile grooming? Especially, this is your own business, is that correct?
yeah. So I actually picked the van up at Hershey. So it's been
Oh
what,
my gosh.
3 weeks, 4 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah. And how's it been going? Do you have clients? Are you still working on that? Where are we at in the process?
So I got really lucky. A lot of my clients found me, and were willing to pay basically double, if not triple, what they were paying before
So
for
so
their.
dive into that because I know it is different. Obviously you're going out to their house. It's a more personalized experience. It takes you a little bit longer, etc. What is the difference kind of in pricing now versus how they were?
So, like, let's take a small dog, for instance. So a small dog takes me about an hour 15, and I charge hourly.
Okay.
So my pricing is $150 an hour plus tax. A small dog is right now costing about 200 and something dollars.
Okay.
So they went from paying $90 to 200 and whatever.
100%. No, I mean, and I mean, but that is something that's worth your time. And I would imagine you're taking less dogs as well because you're driving out to these places. You were taking, let's call it 6 to 8 per groomer before. Is that kind of still the rate that you're kind of hitting these dogs at, or did you wind that down a lot so that you can spend more time with these people?
So my groomers were doing 6 to 8 dogs, but I was doing somewhere between 13 and 20 dogs a day.
Oh my god.
Um, so I don't do that anymore. Um, First off, that's really hard on your body.
Yeah, that's tough. That really
But
makes it
I
tough.
also learned a lot about how to do things quickly and efficiently and in ways that are not so hard on my body. I never lift dogs anymore. I remember being a new baby groomer and I'd be like, that 120-pound dog, I'm going to lift it. Not anymore. Every
Yeah.
big dog that I groom knows it puts itself on the table and it puts itself in the tub. We don't lift dogs.
We don't dodge them here.
I have two. You can jump.
No, I love that. Okay, so it's really you've dialed it back so you can take care of your body, and you can expand your longevity to make sure that you're not hurting yourself on the job, and you can continue to do this and love what you do and not burn out. What do you think that burnout point is? Like, do you stop yourself after 6 dogs a day, or what are you aiming for here?
So I tried to figure out if I could reach it yesterday. I was like, we're gonna book way too many dogs and see what
And
happens.
what
So
was way too many?
I did 1, 2, 3. I did six,
Okay.
seven. I did seven. Um, but three of them were brand new dogs, and I
Yeah.
didn't know what they were gonna end up being. So
Sure.
one of them was a brand new miniature schnauzer puppy hand strip, and then two of them were brand new Lakeland terriers who hadn't been groomed in, like, I would say at least a year, when I got there.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I showed up, and my original conversation was that I was shaving them,
Yeah.
and I got there, and the husband told me I was hand stripping them.
Love that.
I called the wife. I was not hand stripping them.
Yeah.
But they did get breed standard haircuts. So
Okay. That is too funny.
my
Never ask the husband. That's too
To be
good.
fair, the dogs had been stripped in the past, and
Okay.
like good for him to at least mention that because
Yeah.
God, forbid they were supposed to have been hand stripped, and that he didn't mention that, and I shaved them naked. We would have been in for a bad
That is
time.
that is too good.
So I
Oh,
left the house at 7:30, and I got home at 6:30, which is a very long day.
okay.
But at the end of the day, I was happy, and I was super proud of all the work that I did, which
Yeah.
is not something that I got when I was grooming 20 dogs a day. They
No, I
don't
mean,
look.
and that's amazing. Yeah, you're happy. There's also this element that it's like this is mine. Like everything in this van, this is mine. Like it's just me to take care of here. Like I'm responsible for every dog coming in and out. So you feel this sense of like ownership that I feel like you don't have, especially when you have a big operation. Even if you own the big operation, right? It's just completely different. You are touching everything that comes in and out of those doors, which is phenomenal. Um, Lastly, what's next? I know you just got this van, and so, but you're a goal setter. You've always been that, and I can just tell. You're like, oh, I'm gonna win, so I'm gonna win. That's just how I'm gonna do it. So, what's kind of the goals with this van? Do you have in your head? Do you have revenue targets, or do you have dog per day targets? Like, what are you kind of shooting for with this?
So to be honest, I have like money goals for sure, but my biggest goal is I do a lot of teaching and I do a lot of education online. And my biggest benefit to me being alone in this van is that I can film everything and do any sort of teaching that I need to without having to ask permission or make sure that everyone else is comfortable with some stranger being in here.
Right,
So
right.
um, my major goal is to be able to give more education. And
Okay.
I already feel like I did a live stream, quick 30-minute class to some Japanese groomers yesterday, where my friend was on there translating while I was teaching. It was the coolest, craziest
That's
thing.
so cool.
I could never have done that in the salon, but
Yeah.
it was like I will be at this Bishan's house at 2:30. You hop on, I hop on. It's 3:30 in Japan, but they're tuning
That's
in.
amazing. Yeah. So it gives you the opportunity to actually teach and educate, and use your personal brand, for more good, let's call it. That's amazing. I know I love that goal, and I think you'll get there so easily. I think that was also, part of the reason that your name got referred to me by 15 different people for this podcast, as I was mentioning. Um, Macy, we'd love to have you back on. I know we just touched the surface with who you are and how you got to where you are, but there was a lot of things that we left, on the table. There's, the whole world of how you built your salon. We could do 10 episodes about that, as well as your mobile grooming business now. Sharing tips with how you find clients, how you do route setting, how you price your services, all sorts of stuff like that. So we'd love to have you back on, if you'd like to join us. But like I said, I think for now that's a good little dose of who you are and how you got to where you are.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Alex. It was really nice spending time with you.
No, and I appreciate it. And lastly, Macy, give shout out your socials. Where can people find you at, especially as you're going to be doing more of these live streams and stuff like that?
So you can find me on Facebook. Obviously, my name is Macie Pisa. You can also find me on Instagram at Mace Windog. It is a Star Wars pun, not me being a jerk.
No, I like that. I like that. Cool. Thanks so much for joining us, Macy. That's the podcast.
Thank you. Bye bye.